Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie and Andrew here for another recap for Huskies hockey action. And I don't know if I've ever seen back-to-back games with a goalie point. But that's what we got for the Omaha series on the men's side with both Cowan and Shostak getting assist. One on Friday on the empty netter, and then Saturday on the what ended up, I think that was the game winning goal was assisted by the goalie. So helping out his own breakout there.
Playmakers. That's what they say about goaltenders. Shostak putting a good foot forward in terms of a player of the week nomination. Offense and defense.
Offense and defense.
But you won't. That's a tease. That's a tease. We'll get into that a little bit later.
We'll definitely get into that. So, but first and foremost, let's kick off the show how we normally do.
So we're talking about whiskey today.
Whiskey.
The Ric Flair woo. All right. Whiskey of the world. And, we're going to go to Scotland again. I'm going to say Costco maybe a little bit phoning it in on this second pack. I mean, before we had, a much more variety, but so far we've had a couple of the same places. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I got to switch up the order a little bit more, but already our second Scotland of the pack.
I even thought it might've been more than that. Maybe there was an Ireland in there and I'm getting,
there's two confused. Irelands as well. And that's two where Irelands, it's just like
two Scotlands.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to people of those countries. My accent of either of those countries is I can't differentiate the two. So no, that's maybe where I'm getting it mixed up.
No, I look at it as Ireland is more Pierce Brosnan in Tomorrow Never Dies, whereas he sounds a lot more Scottish in Die Another Day. That's kind of how I differentiate between the two accents.
There you go.
So if you want my quick Bond takes, I will give them very quickly. Tomorrow Never Dies, I think, is incredibly underrated, but maybe that's like the print journalism background in me. And I think also that kind of speaks a lot more volumes today. Except, he has an iPad, like, before iPads were a thing. Is like if he would have just invented that, he could have dominated the world, but he didn't. Anyway, he didn't patent that.
Missed opportunity.
And Die Another Day is one of the worst, if not the worst, of the Bond. And I love a callback, and it's full of callbacks, but the plot's messy. The cheesy one-liners like top the Roger Moore era of one-liners, and it's just bad all around. The Madonna cameo, I think, was a little bit too much. It's just.
I was going to say of the Bonds. I mean, I saw those in that close to release. So it's been 30 years, 25, 30 years on the Brosnan films, which is to say I kind of forget whatever opinion I may have had about them. Which is weird because I don't consider Brosnan like a bad Bond. In some ways, he's kind of an ideal Bond. But I would have to rewatch those to really give you a solid opinion about how I like those. It's been too long.
We'll do off season. We'll do Huskies hockey on Bond, and we'll go through. GoldenEye.
We find after you're done with the Costco pack, then we find some bottled in Bond bourbons.
Ooh, there we go. Hey, bottled and bonded on Bond, or
watch it.
We'll workshop it.
That's a good idea, though. Put a pin in that.
I mean, obviously, GoldenEye is top tier. Tomorrow Never Dies, I think, is underrated. Don't Care for the World is not enough. And then obviously Die Another Day is garbage. So there we go. That's my quick hit of the Brosnans. Come at me, but that's the right opinion.
I wish I had a strong opinion. But
anyway, the Scotland whiskey.
Yeah. Scotland, that's going more back to my Bond era with Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
Classic Scott. How does that Scotch, not Scotch, but Scotland, is it? Well, it is Scotch.
It is.
How is that whiskey?
Yep. The smell, it smells really good. It smells really fruity. Not a lot of peat in it. So there's not a lot of that, smoke. I'd say it's pretty middle of the road. I'd probably give it a 6.6. Is kind of where I get it. And then looking, that's actually a little bit less than middle of the road, but I can't make a 6.7 joke because apparently the olds like me killed it, and no longer 6.7 is in. So
right in the meaty part of the curve, the peaty part of the curve,
which I think actually was our intention all along, is to kill it, kind of like how we killed the dab. We'll get into it, but I was on the dance cam on Saturday for the women's game, and I did the Bernie, and I don't know when the last time anyone's Bernied on camera, but I was very happy to do it. I will say that.
You don't wear glasses, do you?
Yeah. I mean,
because there was someone that looked like you, but they had glasses on, and I'm like, that can't be Weldie. Was
did he
that
Bernie?
you?
Did he Bernie?
I don't know what the Bernie is. This is
the Bernie, like Weekend at Bernie's when he's dead.
Oh, okay. I get that. I guess I can't remember exactly what the dance move was, but that could have been it.
Oh, that definitely was it.
But I struck it out of my head because of the glasses. I'm like, I've never seen Weldie wear glasses.
Apparently I don't know what like the technical term is, but don't see distance good, I think is what the optometrist said. So, and it's not too bad. It's actually a really mild prescription, but like, it's one of those things that, you know, when I'm driving, Teresa's like, you should really be able to read that sign from further away. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. You have LASIK. Like, I don't like you, of course, can see you've got like RoboCop vision. And she's like, no, this is so when I go out and I'm like driving and whatnot, I'll throw my glasses on. So
is this new?
If you want,
is this relatively new that you've had to wear these glasses? You said you had the LASIK surgery before as well. That kind of seems redundant.
No, Teresa's had LASIK.
Oh, okay.
So she
got it. I was
was saying that I should be able to see those signs, and I said, no, you have an advantage. My eyes aren't that bad.
Those glasses. That was you. You made not only because they must play the same jumbo board feed on to the Big Ten Plus feed as well. So that was you, son of a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like the prescription is like a year plus old. I just didn't get these glasses until like 2 months ago. More recent than that, like 4 or 5 months ago. But so I'm still getting used to them. But usually if I'm like out and about, I'll wear them because I do see distance better with them. So
yeah.
And then
congratulations for making it on the TV here in Arizona. I said, wow, that guy kind of looks like Weldie and he's dancing. So this kind of circles that square.
Also I'll tell this story real quick. I had an older woman come up to me and say, I used to remember you dressing up as the referee at the dog pound at the men's games.
Don't we all?
And I'm like, yes, that was me. I did that. And he was like, I've got a picture of you with one of my granddaughters at the time. Apparently I posed for pictures, which actually did happen a couple of times. I was like, yeah. Like foreign exchange students especially came up and wanted to take my picture and whatnot. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, it turns out she was the linesman, or she was the lines person in the game. So that's how it shows my age and how I progressed. It's like that kind of made me feel old. Is that picture that's floating around? Apparently, there's that's how far gone I am. Is now that girl is now a woman reffing games
for the games this weekend. So she's a WCHA lines person.
Correct.
Ow.
Crazy, right?
Small
and
world.
I'm old, I guess. Yeah.
Small world, and you're you're very old.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that game there at the back half. Let's go. Let's talk about the men getting split on the road in Omaha, which used to be the Riviera of the NCHC before Arizona State decided to join the conference. So we had kind of a interesting games. Friday's game, a 6-2 loss, and I thought, obviously, I mean, you were up 2-0 in 11 minutes. I thought we were going to just kind of coast. I thought we were playing well. I thought we were dictating pace. You got a power play goal from Barrett Hall. That was nice. You got, Thorson's goal ended up going in, and it's like, okay, things are going our way. And then just, I don't know, we just kind of let off the gas, and it's like we just took everything for granted, and then we never righted the ship after that. And the next period, and obviously the one after that, but especially that second period, I'm like, what are we doing here? I thought everyone was out of sorts. Puck was bouncing all over the place. I felt like we couldn't connect a pass. It's like all of a sudden we kind of forgot how to play. And I believe this is the first, or maybe it's the second game so far this year where we've scored first and didn't end up with the win. So it was kind of disheartening to see us really just nosedive after the first 11 minutes.
Which is another turning of the tables. Is generally this team's problems have been first periods, and especially first periods of a weekend. This time it's you score twice in the first 10 minutes. And as you said, it seemed like the game, I wouldn't say they were dominating Omaha, but on the scoreboard, you're up 2 on the road, always a good place to be. And they were at least controlling play. I didn't really see much out of Omaha.
Maybe not dominating. Fair enough.
And this is an unusual spot for this team to be in. So that made me feel like this is okay. Maybe I didn't think that we proved that this team is like tournament worthy based on the Cactus Cup performance, but at least it was like, okay, you got a little bit of momentum from that. And we've avoided a bad start of, starting off a weekend. And even more so than that, you're coming out and dictating play and getting a multi-goal lead relatively quickly into this game. So I was like, this could be like a dusting on the road here in a place that they really haven't played very well, let's say this decade in the 2020s. But then the other shoe dropped. I suppose the bad periods, maybe the times of bad periods were just kind of flip-flopped this game, because seemingly after Omaha gets that first goal, just kind of a broken play. A lot of these goals that Omaha scored seemingly kind of came from a bad defensive decision, neutral zone turnovers,
just meltdowns.
Gardner sort of lost a guy inexplicably for a goal. I think that was the third goal, power play goal in the third. That was you can look at the replay there I did just before we went on air here, was basically the box just leaves a guy out wide open in the front of the net. Rasborough and Ryman kind of watching a guy wide open to knock that one home. So it's that the ways that St. Cloud was giving up these goals was familiar in that it was a lot of defensive, you'd think, fixable defensive miscues that happened 5 times plus an empty netter. Berzins did not play great. I mean, again, I think the defense was largely to blame, but Berzins didn't really make the kinds of saves we've been expecting him to make of late. I was glad to see Shostak in on Saturday. Again, not that it was all on Berzins, of course, but he looked a little bit off as well. So this is another one of those games where we can get to the Saturday game, which I think was a good response, even though I don't think they played as good as they did in the first 10 minutes on Friday. They didn't play as good in any period on Saturday, but yet they were able to pull out the win. It's just based on that opening, first 10, 15 minutes. I thought that this team was, had turned a corner, but then we see the usual suspects kind of come back, and that was deflating. So after Friday, it was another one of these, what do we got here? Is this a team that's going to be defined by the bad defense? Or is this a team that's able to pick itself off the mat and recover at least for a split? After Friday, though, it was one of those, I don't know what this team is exactly.
Yeah, it really left a bad taste in your mouth. The defensive miscues, and I keep bringing it up and I keep harping on it, and I know everyone is getting sick of me, but I feel all of this, like, I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's just some kind of a structure issue, but it's like these should be teachable moments that should kind of disappear as the season goes on and you get more in the routine of everything, and that just doesn't seem to be the case. We keep kind of falling into these same traps and letting these players have clear shots at the net, and it's just incredibly frustrating to watch as a fan. So I was incredibly nervous going into Saturday because I felt like this was kind of a situation of, okay, what are we going to do here as where we're at with this team? And I felt like it was kind of a make or break type game. Now that's probably a little bit harsh, a little bit too much, kind of going into it on early January, but I think so much that goes into it, with how poorly we've done in the second half. And it's like, we need these types of wins. So Saturday comes in, rolls around, and it's an interesting game. I felt like there wasn't really a lot of flow to this game. There was a lot of penalties in that second period. But we end up, going after 2, being tied, and then Barrett Hall, again, he's been just clutch all year. He had his best weekend. I think he was like really the standout. I would say as far as the forward goes all weekend. But he ends up getting the game-winning goal there in the third period. On the power play right after a shorthanded chance where Shostak had to kind of come out and play the puck. So it was kind of one of those situations. It was like finally something, it kind of fell our way. Able to go ahead and hang on for the win with a lot of flair for the dramatic too. Shostak, his kind of highlight reel save where the puck kind of squirts on by and it's going back. You feel like it's going to dribble through the back of the net, but he's able to dive back and swat it, and while it's sitting on the goal line. I thought that was in live.
I did too.
And I mean, even looking at the replay too, it's like from the position he is out in front of the crease and the speed of which that puck is traveling towards the net, it's like there's no way he's getting there in time. And like, I don't know, like a cat just able to pounce on it, is just able to make sure it doesn't cross the line, was just absolutely insane to watch. But yeah, he kept it. I thought he played really well. He had to come up big numerous times there to make sure the split, and I thought he was really the key that you know kept me at least a little bit more even keel on this team, as you know, a split on the road, not ideal. Omaha's a team you would like to sweep, but you know, having it kind of in this situation here, it's like, hey, it's split there. You're getting some wins in January, which I guess I should take. But it made me feel a little bit better about where this team's at, and we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah, so I don't know where to start. So talking about the Friday games, the defensive breakdowns, I was expecting a good amount of shuffling in the lines on Saturday. We did see a good amount of that, and we did see Showstack start in net, which again I was expecting as well. It's kind of weird though, like you'd think with the defense being as problematic as it was on Friday that there'd be some shuffling there. It's harder to do that, I guess. Shuffle up defensive pairings is a little bit more of a drastic move than forward lines, and the fact that they were shorthanded on the back end. Thor Bufflin missed this entire series with an injury. So you're only going with 6D to begin with, already shorthanded based on the Tanner Henricks injury as well. So, and that didn't necessarily bode. That's not like it made me feel any better. The defensive core struggled, but at least they're shorthanded. Like we only got 6 guys. And I don't know really what difference it would make, if it would be of any benefit to let's put Zinger with somebody else, or let's move, Smolinski, or break up Smolinski and Wiley. So in retrospect, less of a surprise, even though that's maybe the unit that needed a little bit more of a spark. They did play better on Saturday. I did think Smolinski, he's a little, there was twice that he sprung a guy, and that second time was the play where Showstack kind of bailed him out, which turned into his assist on that game winner. That kind of set up by a Smolinski misplay there. But how it turned out, obviously you'll take it as Huskies fans. That was the game-winning goal. So it's not like the defense was, outstanding, but just giving up the one goal. I thought this was Showstack's maybe his best performance of the year. I know that he's had, like the Vermont shutout, and it's not like Omaha is a, way better opponent than Vermont is, but this was his first conference win, and his conference performances prior to this, fairly ugly. 6 goals allowed against Western, 6 against Miami, got pulled against Denver, decent against Duluth, decent against North Dakota. But in conference play, it's been Berzins that's been carrying this team, or at least has been in net for all their wins prior to this game. And I thought Showstack's, we've kind of described it as a little bit manic or frenetic, how you describe his plays. It's on the Jimmy Gray cocaine spectrum at times. This was a good happy medium of, I think, an active presence in the net, willing to kind of be all over the place, but in a good way. And he needed to make some big saves. This is a low shot on goal game. 22 shots to 21 was the final tally. So it's not like he was seeing rubber consistently throughout the night, but just the impact of his saves and the fact that Omaha scores the first goal. So this is, all those bad feelings after the Friday game, and then Omaha scores first. And it's like, here we go again. Going to get swept again at Omaha for the third time in 4 series there. That's what was running through my head. Showstack needed to kind of right the ship, and a guy whose style maybe doesn't scream calmness in a sense, though I thought that was kind of what the Huskies needed, because it kind of gave them a spark from the goaltending position, not something that you generally look to for an energy boost. But so props to Showstack, because I think he really stepped up, and it was a big win. We came into this series last show kind of previewing it, had a bit of a debate about, I think you had let me know if this is correct framing of your argument, but you're kind of saying do or die sweep for the Huskies. Like if they want to make the tournament, this is going to be a a series they're going to want to sweep. And I'm like, if they split, I think I'm fine with that. It's a little too early for me to say you got to take 2 wins here. But as it is, the split, winning on Saturday, they're at 19th in NPI right now. They came into the weekend at 20th. So you moved up a point in NPI, moved up a couple of spots in conference standings to 6th, bit of a log jam between really 9th and 5th. But you moved up a couple of spots in the conference standings. But if you would have lost that Saturday game, I just ran the customizer on CHN, they would have been at 26th. So this is a 7 spot in NPI difference in this win on Saturday. Again, I don't think it was a pretty win, but I think it's an important win because not only that those 7 spots in NPI, but we've been at this spot in the second half in recent seasons where the bad vibes and the bad bounces and the bad play seems to snowball. I think we saw a little bit of that, 1 game sample on Friday. You get the 2-0 lead and then you blink and it's 6-2 and it's a loss and you're blowing up your line chart the next game. If you would have done the same on Saturday, then you're coming into 2 straight weeks with Duluth and Denver. This could have been you could take that 1 game snowball effect loss and you could have easily spread that out into a couple of weekends here. So by avoiding getting too into these bad habits and making them compound on itself, I think you're able to avoid that and come back with a key win on the road. So it's one of those things. I almost feel like this team is not exactly hanging by a thread, but it's like the margin is so small here. And we're just kind of doing enough to get to the next weekend, to stay alive. And hey, you're at 19th in pairwise. This thing is still definitely a possibility, but it's just a weird team to kind of look forward to when you're looking at these next 2 series against highly ranked teams. And so I'm kind of unsure of what to think about this team because they can look really good in spurts, but in stretches too, they can look kind of like how they did on Friday. They can look not so good. So I'll take the split. That's kind of what I was expecting and calling before the weekend, but I don't know if how you were coming into this weekend and how it feels after this weekend, if your mindset's changed at all.
A little, I don't know. I do think this team can beat any team on any given night. And I do think maybe that's what we need out of an NCAA tournament type team and a type situation. I just don't know if we have the consistency to do it. And I know those are kind of counterintuitive when I say, one time and consistency, but you look at this weekend where, you have kind of a muck 'em out type game, able to win 2-1. You're able to clamp down, didn't allow a ton of shots, a lot of neutral zone play. And I think maybe, I don't know, I'd like to take a look maybe at the rest of Omaha, but I don't know if just benches on opposite sides, if they have anything to do with it, that you have line changes on both sides of the ice. Then don't get me started on the score bug too. Who puts the scoreboard bug at the bottom of the screen? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Move it up. But it's, you're able to win that type of a defensive kind of lockdown game. And, I'm not going to sit here and say Omaha is some kind of a offensive powerhouse, but you've got, Friday's game where you've got a 2-0 lead and you feel like you can phone it in. And it's just lackadaisical play in your own end, losing guys like you did. You brought up Gardner. I thought he, especially on that third goal, I was like, he just looked absolutely lost off there. Ended up getting benched there in the second game. Yep. So let's kind of talk about, some of those roster changes as well. Cause you had Ingram in there on Friday, only played about 9 minutes or so.
How many minutes?
The extra forward. What was that?
How many minutes?
9 minutes
times.
I just blew right past that, didn't I?
You can edit it in.
Yeah, just throw it in. I'll do my magic editing.
I know you will.
And then Saturday's game, you got Ethan Alcoin getting some time, gets a goal in an extra attacker situation. Aiden Welch played very sparingly as well. So like you said with the shuffling, I mean, giving up a 2-goal lead early and then losing 6-2. Yeah, you need to shuffle something. So I'm happy that Brett did that. And, I don't know if Alcoin played his way into Friday's game with a goal or into Friday's game against Duluth with a goal. But it was good to see him there on the score sheets. So, do you have any thoughts about, some of those changes that were made for the Saturday game?
Another one would have been Ashan moved up to the Gross Bernovic line. So he gets, prime playing time, 19 minutes. I guess I could check right now, but I would imagine that's the most ice time he logged in any single game this year, at least up there. And again, he's kind of an energy guy. Who would not be my first pick to move up to that line, but I thought he played okay. Then you had Miettinen.
Yeah, that's his high mark for the season by far.
Yeah. Miettinen playing with Hall and Thorson on his wings. I don't know if we've seen that threesome on a line together this year. Thorson had an interesting weekend. Thornson, I should say, if we're taking the Omaha announcers.
Really hammer that in.
Word for it. I don't know where he's getting the second end there. Or the first end, I suppose. It seems pretty clear. And it's weird whenever whatever the color guy was saying it fine, but it's kind of like a Brocklehorst situation where he just got it. He said it once, I got to go with it the rest of the weekend. But I thought he had a Thorson kind of weekend where Thorson was getting involved in the peskiness and took a penalty at one point, I think, based on just the amount of eyeballs he was attracting on the ice. That is his game.
One breakaway that he had too, where I was like, I think if he played for Andover, he would have made that.
I don't know how he didn't finish it. It would have been it could have been a Herbie nominee. It was he had it all there except the finish.
I wonder if they just had like a basketball game there at Baxter and the ice wasn't in the best, like it just hopped over or something like that. Because usually I would think a man of his skill would be able to put that one away.
I don't know. I mean, we could talk about this more of like a general philosophy kind of thing. I mean, the last several years, I mean, at least with Larson's recent history, maybe most of Larson's tenure here, lines seem to be very dynamic in terms of there's nothing being really set in stone. This is kind of a question. My question to you is it too much? Or do you like the idea that there's no lines that, we're going to run with the entire season? For instance, I'd like to think that I know that last year, Western Michigan made some headlines for the fact that First Roller really wasn't moving lines around. He was keeping his lines pretty much set from, a month into the season. Those are the lines that he rode throughout the rest of the season. Denver's like really good lines that you can remember in years past. Those lines gained their nicknames due to the fact that they weren't broken up. Obviously, those are outlier examples, but with St. Cloud, that you don't have like a single line of the caliber of the teams that I just mentioned. But I feel like, we talked about like Rode, Ernest, and Bernovic, who they had for 2 weeks, maybe earlier this year, that we kind of liked, and they haven't been back together since. Do you think that there could be a benefit of keeping lines together for longer, even if there's like a struggle for a game or two? Or do you kind of like this idea that keeps everyone on their toes? It maybe improves chemistry by trying some combinations out, and you'll find out kind of what works. What's your kind of general philosophy when it comes to forward lines and keeping them intact or not?
No, obviously they didn't interlap, but I think Motzko and Larson have similar philosophies when it comes to lines. Whereas you find a pair that you really like, and then you kind of rotate that third one in to see who fits the best there. And I think that's what Larson really does as well. Now I like it because you never know who's going to gel, and what you want out of it. Now, at the same time, what we as fans want out of a line is not necessarily what Larson is going to want out of a line. Look at the Rosborough, Rogers, Ryman, whoever, that situation where it's like, we're going to groan every time they're on the ice, but you got to have those energy guys, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand that phrase really when it comes to, it's kind of like when football player or football commentators, it was like, oh, he's a real change of pace back. And it's like, what does that mean? You mean he's slow? Like, what's he doing as a running back? What do you mean by a change of pace back? It's like, oh yeah, those high energy. Okay, so they just run around, bang into people, and it's like, no, I want to score goals. Don't get me started on the U.S. Olympic roster, but I won't talk about that at this time. You can DM me for my thoughts on that if anybody wants that. But where was I? So when we find a combination that I feel, or we, the royal we, with the, Ernest, Bernovic and Road line, it's one of those things like that worked out really well. Why don't we go back to that? And especially if you've got Hall and Gross, doing so well together. Yeah, sure. You're going to line up two lines, for all of your scoring pretty much. But at the same time, it's not like we have a ton of depth anyway. And if anything, that might, that's where we got the most activity out of Ernest and Road, was when they were with Bernovic. So like, to me, that actually gives you maybe a little bit more depth. And then the other two lines, if you want to go like a 1-2-3, 1-2-4 type of a line rotation, but I know Larson's not going to do that. He's a big fan of rolling four lines, which that I think is something that maybe to a little bit lesser of a degree. Now, I don't think he did that nearly as much on Saturday's game, maybe because of the makeup of the tighter, but looking at the time on ice, I mean, and Aiden Welch, I think, got only like 3 minutes. Rosborough even didn't get that many as well. So it's a kind of a situation. It's like, I like the kind of jumbling of the lines, but if you find something that clicks, I think you kind of put that as a staple, and it's like, yep, that's what we have to keep it with. But that's where it's like, I don't know if Larson's going to go back to that line. I'd be really interested to see what happens if he does.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But we also haven't had like the main goal scorer, like of like the Pacific Rim line or the CBS line,
right?
We've never had that type of blue chip talent on our roster. We've kind of had to come and kind of develop those organically with, it's not like everyone was fighting over Kosla and Newell before we were able to pluck them. So
yeah, obviously not bringing those teams up as a way, like a legitimate, like we can compare lines on this Huskies team to those kind of nickname lines, but just as an example of, those lines probably aren't as good if they're not gaining chemistry long-term by playing with each other a lot. And it was just interesting how it's usually been Hall and Gross that's been together the bulk of the season. And we've been saying, take Bernovic off of Hall and Gross's line. What does he do on Saturday? It's Gross. He keeps Gross and Bernovic together, and it's Hall that moves off that line, which is, I think, it's just an interesting choice. I would just like to see Bernovic with Roden Ernest, even though Roden Ernest have been playing pretty decent the last couple of weeks. Played, I thought, a good Cactus Cup this past weekend. The Road gets an assist on that, a coin goal, which was an empty or extra attacker situation. So a little bit more of you had 6 players on the ice there momentarily. So maybe not the exact lines that you drew up were actually on the ice for that goal. But yeah, just something that I noticed. I don't mind the switching, but when we do have some combinations that have been successful, maybe keeping them together for a longer stretch wouldn't be a bad idea. But I mean, the Friday game is one of those ones where it felt like I was expecting there to be significant changes. Maybe not that much. I didn't think that Welch was going to come back this year. I was almost kind of thinking maybe he was got injured in October. I was sort of writing it off that we're not going to see him again this year. I'm not even sure if there's you can get a free year from him. I think he might be 21. He's either 20 or 21. If he is 21, it really wouldn't matter to get a red shirt. But if he is 20, if he's got the 4 years after this still eligible, it might have made sense to just keep the red shirt on him. But so I was surprised just to see his name back in the lineup, but a coin as well. He's the guys we've mentioned. We kind of forget he's on this roster until he plays. And then lo and behold, he scores the tying goal, which turned out to be a big kind of momentum turning goal. Got the Huskies back to even, and then the Huskies were able to get the winner in the third period. So good to see, a big goal that he pops in. So yeah, again,
I think that's his fifth game of the season.
Something like that. It's he's very sporadic. I don't know if he's played 2 games in a weekend yet this year, but it's just this team it's a weird one at times. They can look pretty good, they can look not so great for long stretches of both. And in conference play, it's especially difficult gauging how this team matches up. Omaha's one thing. When they match up with the Duluth and Denvers of the world, we'll see in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be quite a different test. But to me, this was a big win. It had a bit of a feeling of that Denver comeback win in December, whereas you lose that game, then you're going in an extended slide into the break. Obviously there's no break after this period, but you're going after this game, but you were going into a difficult 2-week stretch of the schedule. You go into that stretch on a losing streak. That's not great, Bob. So to me, it was one of the bigger wins of the year because it just kind of righted the ship momentarily here. And as we'll see coming into this next weekend, now we've got situations where, pairwise or NPI jumps are much more possible because you're playing teams, especially Duluth, which are so highly ranked, that wins against those teams, splits against those teams are going to bump you up in the NPI more so than the 1 spot bump you got this weekend at Omaha. But not to get too far ahead of ourselves, I know I always run over this, but are we ready for POWs?
Well, let's do it. You want me to go first?
Sure.
All right, let's go ahead with our POWs. Now, it's really a situation here where it's, after Friday's game, it's like, okay, somebody's got to have an absolute blowout standout game for me to POW. Otherwise you're having this ho hum kind of a POW where it's like, ugh. Now obviously I can sing the praises of Barrett Hall, who scored, in both power play goals. You got Friday's goal, you got Saturday's goal. The game winning one, especially too. And all season he's been, I think, our best player, really the most dynamic. I thought Tyson Gross actually maybe a little bit off of his game this weekend, wasn't nearly as dominant as he has been in the past. So a little bit of a rare off weekend, I think, for him. But I think when it comes down to who has played, how I'm feeling about this weekend, I think really rests on the pads of one player, and that was Shostak. So even though he only played there on Saturday, I'm going to give him my POW because of that situation of, I am I am digging the grave. I am 6-footed digging this grave for this team if we don't win, if we get swept out there. And I think Showstack's a big reason why we didn't. I think he played well enough on Saturday to get the POW and for us to move one spot up in the NPI as well. And I think it was kind of all right, Showstack is really arrived and kind of is, this is what we think Showstack can be like the rest of the season. I think we're gonna surprise some teams going forward. So I'm picking Showstack here for my pal.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier in the show that Hall you thought was the best forward this weekend for the Huskies, and I would agree with that. Not even just with the goal in each game, but just from a dynamic standpoint, I agree that Gross was a little quiet this weekend. His long point streak snapped on Friday. He does get an assist on Saturday, but
point streak
relatively points. Yeah, he's got a new point streak started. It should show you the bar that we've set for him, that we're disappointed with a Gross performance on the weekend. So I was prepared for you to take Hall, and then I was going to come in here and scoop you up with Showstack. But we're just going to have to agree. I'm going to go with Showstack as well for the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, you joked at the open of the show about the assist. This was different than the Cowan assist. This was an actual assist. I mean, he makes a good read there, and that was the kind of read, different situation, not exactly the same situation, but the first goal for Omaha in part was a bad read on Berzins, who tried to poke chuck that puck. And again, that was more of a play that was already established in the offensive zone, more of a bad breakout from the Huskies, but still a play where Berzins makes an attempt to do something similar to what Showstack did on Saturday. Showstack just executed that play much better. Again, different situation, but similar. But he showed good instincts there, and showed instincts that kind of calm under pressure for a freshman like him, a freshman who's been struggling this year, numbers wise. So that was actually a key play, because not only do you have to endure an Omaha power breakaway, but you get the puck back in the offensive zone, and Hall ends up scoring the game-winning goal. So not just a cheapy point in, kind of like, how did he get that? At the end of the season, you look at the stat sheet, circling that, but I wonder how that happened. No, this was one that he actually earned. And then, as you said, just the saves that he had to make, especially so it goes off the post and then hits his back, and then it was going to roll into the net, but he had to act quickly and pounce on that. He did. Key play that was like Omaha's best chance after St. Cloud takes the lead. Best chance for them to tie it up. But so again, the stopping 20-21, that's not going to, I'm sure he wasn't the NCHC goalie of the weekend. But for the Huskies, and just how big this game was, even though it might not seem like that right now, this one was a big one. And again, I don't think that this goalie competition is over at all. Far from it. But how the competition, I think the stakes of it still remain just who's winning the next start. And I would say that this has given Showstack the Friday start against Duluth. Maybe that's a good segue to move into that weekend, to previewing the weekend series against UMD. I would expect Showstack to start on Friday. What say you?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think so too. I think you're right. And also you got to give him a chance to keep his point streak going. So
him and Gross need to start.
Him and Gross both have a 1 point streak. I think the bigger question is if Alcoin gets into lineup.
I would think so, right?
But I just want to point out that Showstack now has the same number of points this season as Jack Rogers and Damon Gardner. So
we say that with love.
Kind of. I guess I could throw Belial in there, although I wouldn't expect him at the beginning of the season to have that, but I mean, when you have two forwards who have been, especially Gardner, kind of the fall off, and it's not like he lit the world on fire last year, but 14 points on the season, 5 goals, 9 assists. I was kind of looking for him to be one of those players to kind of take a next step, but I don't know. It's any time I feel like we get these abnormally tall players that are on St. Cloud State. They end up being kind of a liability out there, a la Ben Storm. So it's kind of a situation where it's kind of a little bit of a bummer that I expected a little bit more. If you're thinking of depth scoring, that we need to really turn a corner. You look at some players. I think Gardner was one of them here. I was looking for a 20-25 point season out of him. Maybe not lighting the world on fire, but being a solid contributor, and to only have 1 point on the year and making some of these defensive miscues. I mean, we saw his shot a couple of times last year. I was like, this guy can rifle the puck, and it hasn't clicked for him for whatever reason this year.
Yeah, it's seemingly kind of in the doghouse now, because I don't know if he played after that third goal where he sort of blew the coverage. Just 5 minutes, according to CHN's time on ice for Friday, and then obviously benched on Saturday. So we'll see if he's back in the lineup. I would expect a Coin to be back in there. Kind of be weird for him to score, his 1 goal in 5 games, his first point of the season, and then to put him back on the bench. So I would expect him to play a guy like Rogers, who's played several games in a row here. It's not like he's really been screaming for all this ice time. So if you need to bench someone, he's a prime candidate for that. But you'd like to see some of these role depth guys, that there be a little bit more, I don't know, sense of urgency from those kind of guys, or like performances like a Coin where they come into the lineup after an absence and then pop a goal in, or they're at least noticeable on the ice. You'd like to see some of that. If you're going to get a guy that's not played in a while, at the very least, you like to see some spark delivered by that kind of guy. Like, can we see Ingram do that? Like, again, I still don't know what's up with him. Like, now he plays 1 game a weekend. Who knows if there was an academic thing going on? He's like an enigma at this point, but still with the goose egg on the season as well. Him and Gardner. It's like the two kind of biggest like shrug emojis on this team. Those two players just like to get some kind of production, some positive contributions from those players. But as we mentioned about like line shuffling, we should probably just expect more of that. Like, maybe to see the kinds of player, like the one pairing, even mentioning like Gross and Hall were broken up on Saturday. We've seen that kind of pairing most of the season, and I kind of expect them to resume playing together at some point. The one pairing that seems to be the most stable would be like Rode and Ernest, which is kind of weird. Like, they're 2 freshmen, but I don't know if they've really been broken up since the beginning of the season. It feels like they're always together. It's just a matter of who is with them. And it hasn't been Bernovic of late, and we'd like to see that again. But we've seen them with Thorson in the Cactus Cup, which I thought was decent. But obviously that the Saturday game in Omaha, they were played with Rogers was playing with them. Again, we'll see if that continues. What we should expect is just more shuffling. Like, it's just, I don't think anything's really set in stone, for better or worse. But let's talk about this Duluth team. I mean, St. Cloud's played them already before in Duluth, which is,
I don't know if that was played them. They played us.
Yeah, I was going to say the results for St. Cloud and Duluth have stayed with the results that they've had up in Duluth the last couple of years, men's or women's team. We've got a women's series at Duluth to preview later in this show. Stick around for that. That's to say that the Huskies have really struggled with Duluth teams, especially in Duluth. Now, the men's team has had a bit of a better go of it against Duluth at home in recent years, but this is a better Duluth team than they've had in a couple of years. And, coming off a sweep, a non-conference series, hosting Lindenwood, swept that with relative ease. I mean, they're up to 4 in NPI. They were the only NCHC team that was idle in conference play this past weekend. They're 4th in the conference. So get that. 4th in NPI, 4th in the NCHC. Strength of schedule there for you in the NPI, really boosting them. But everyone is even at 12 games played in the conference right now. And it's still up for grabs. I mean, Duluth's 8 points out of first. They're 3 points out of second. They're 4 points ahead of Arizona State for 5th. But a good team, a team that's powered by offense. It's kind of going away from kind of the Duluth recipe of the late teens and early 20s. I mean, we got the big line that we all know about, the Plants and Shugave line. Max Plant, who had an injury concern in the World Juniors. I mean, he played the 2 games in Lindenwood and had 6 points combined on the weekend. So he seems healthy and fine. And we expect him to be a force to reckon with this weekend. I mean, that's kind of the diagnosis we had with Duluth after that series in Duluth in November. Is depth scoring is probably going to be an issue for them, but that top line is lethal. And they're getting good contributions from their point men as well, namely Ty Hansen, who's already got 24 points. He's got to be among the league leaders in defensive scoring for point totals. So, I mean, yes, depth isn't quite there. I mean, some of their depth guys really chipped in. Scout Truman, Caleb Arnott in that series in Duluth. If St. Cloud is going to have a chance in the series, what they did in that series was they limited the Plant line. They didn't score at even strength. They scored at special teams and 3-on-3. We especially remember that 3-on-3 goal. But 5-on-5, they actually did pretty well neutralizing that line. That's going to be a key this weekend. Mm-hmm. But also what we're mentioning, like special teams, it was not good either in Omaha this past week in penalty kill. So staying out of the box is going to be a key for the Huskies as well. Adam Guyon, who made some news, the goalie for Duluth, made some news. He's going to be playing for Slovakia's Olympic team this year. Women's side has a lot more NCAA players, current NCAA players involved. Is this the only one? This is the only one that I know of. I very well could have missed one in some other league, other NCAA league. But as far as like NCHC guys, I think this is the only one that I've heard of, current NCAA player that's going to be appearing at the Olympics.
Yeah, he's the only current player so far named.
In NCAA or
Correct.
just NCHC? Okay, yeah. I didn't expect any, really, now that the pros are allowed back in the Olympics. So it was a bit of a surprise. Bit of bad timing, I suppose. Like if the Huskies were playing Duluth in February, they'd miss them. But I guess that'll be the benefit of teams playing Duluth in February, I suppose. But
maybe
they saw Guyon.
We'll go ahead and just be like, well, if we're gonna have them gone for a month, we got to see what we have for our other goalies.
There we go.
So maybe.
And the only goalie that I see here that's got an action series, Ethan Dahlmeyer, who the Huskies would have saw last year for Miami, one of Miami's goalies last year, who put up numbers that you'd think a Miami goalie of last year's team would have put up. So they're probably going to have to rely on him at least for a couple of weeks in February there, but. They did see Guyon in November, shut him out on that Friday game, and played well on Saturday, won both games. That Friday game, that Guyon threw the shutout, one of St. Cloud's worst outings this year. So we'll see. This is a series game with how highly ranked Duluth is. A split will probably move you up more than the split at Omaha moved you up this week. Again, that's isolated on their results. Other results, the teams that surround them in the NPI would help out as far as how much that split would benefit them. A sweep would be great, of course, but it's a Duluth team that seems to be back, which is to say that they're a dangerous team, and I hate them. I will always hate them, and I never like playing them. Where is your mindset coming into this weekend, and what are you thinking the Huskies are going to do against the Bulldogs this weekend?
Well, I mean, you were talking about, the jumping up of the pairwise if we're able to get a split this weekend. But, I just kind of want to take a look because when I was looking at the pairwise, we all of a sudden have to look at the vaunted CCHA with Augustana sitting at 12, St. Thomas at 14, and then Minnesota State at 17. So, I mean, there are three that are just right ahead of us when it comes to it. So I was just going to take a quick peek to see who they play this weekend. To see St. Thomas and Bemidji, Augustana and Ferris, and then Mankato is at Tech. So, but anyway, that's kind of an aside. So let's get back to the task at hand. Granted, their power play numbers were bolstered a little bit here by lighting up Lindenwood. I think they had 4 power play goals in that 8-4 victory. It's still, you're looking at a power play that's just absolutely a beast at 35%, and you're looking at our penalty kill at 72. So their power play torched us earlier this year, and I think it's the biggest thing that if you're going to make any type of a win here this weekend, you've got to win the special teams battle or draw even on special teams at least. Because I think, the risk reward of, you live by the long ball, you die by the long ball, and, you have that one line. Yeah, that's dynamic. But if you're able to contain it, then, I think where, you're going depth on depth. Now, I know Minnesota Duluth can look at St. Cloud and just say the exact same thing right back to us, because really we've got Bernovic, Hall, and Gross, and then after that, it's a who's going to score. So there's a lot of similarities here when it comes to it, but just looking at what Minnesota Duluth's been able to do this season, and especially that special teams, that really gives them the edge. And even being 88% on the penalty kill, that's absolutely massive. So it's going to be kind of a heck of a test. I'm going to be kind of fascinated to see the lineup and where we're going to be at. With us having the line change or the last change, if, their top line goes out, if that's just going to be when we send, Wiley out there and try to hold our own there. So it's, that's kind of what, everything that we're looking at, for this weekend. I say their power play torched us, but maybe I was thinking Kleber's goal was a 4-on-4 there for that first goal. So, 1 for 3 on the power play on Friday's game up in Amsoil. And I think they were 1 for 4. So not great, not abysmal. So I'll take it back a little bit that they torched us, but,
Plant would have scored that. Max Plant would have scored that power play goal, or he did score a power play goal. I feel like that line scored on the power play in that series. If not, I thought it was more than once, but your memory can play tricks with you sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Their goal on Friday's game. Yeah. Zam scored.
That was Zam play. That was Zam. Okay.
Yeah.
Max scored in the 3-on-3.
Max scored the overtime goal. Yeah,
that's right. Okay. Yeah, Caleb Arnott scored on the power play, assisted by both Plants, also on Saturday as well. Mm-hmm. So they must be some interesting power play personnel with them. But yeah, the only one of 2 teams to have both the top 10 power play and top 10 penalty kill. Randomly, the other team that's also in the top 10 in both of those categories, Augustana. Which is a little strange, but what are you thinking?
Well, they're 12 in the pairwise, so or in the NPI.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that I think is kind of a house of cards because they're built on special teams and goaltending, and if one of those things doesn't click, they're gonna lose. So I don't mind it. I don't mind seeing that because they were my CCHA pick in both of our Pick the Field shows this year. So I'm happy to go Vikings, Skol. But I don't know if it's exactly a recipe for sustained success. It might get you to the tournament, though. Back to the Duluth Huskies series. I'm Mr. Split. I've been that the last several series, at least conference series. And, it's, again, a team like Duluth that's highly ranked. I think that'll be just fine. Where do you see this series ending up for St. Cloud?
Yeah, I'm looking at split as well. Maybe if I were to be more level-headed and like 100% objective, I would say that we'll go to overtime one of these games, and lose the other
that's
one.
it.
And that's it. Yeah.
So it could be like the at Duluth series where you lost in overtime and then lost in regulation.
A split like minus. I mean, if we have split plus, can we have a split minus?
Sure. 2 or fewer points on the weekend. I think that'd be it. At some point, if you want to make the tournament, at some point you got to get some sweeps.
Yeah.
Now it's a tall task against what is, is at the highest. Well, North Dakota's at 2 in NPI, so the second highest ranked NCHC team in NPI right now. It's a tall task, but it's going to happen at some point. The one big thing too is let's see a Friday win. Because those have been really hard to come by. They're winless in conference on Fridays. The only 2 times that they've won on Friday, that was at Bemidji and against Anchorage at home. Both of those times that you won Friday games, you followed it up with a Saturday win. So you swept those series. The only 2 sweeps this year, you got there because you won on Friday. Go figure. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Winning on Friday will give you a good chance on sweeping the series.
We'll give you a way
better chance than if you lose on Friday. But let's win on Friday and then either go for the gravy, get that overtime plus result, or just win both of them in regulation. It'd be great. But let's just, again, I feel like we're making progress. Played a good first 15 minutes at Omaha. Then you let it kind of slip down your leg. But let's use that start at Omaha on Friday and play like that for an entire 60 minutes. And then let's play like that again for another 60 minutes on Saturday. Let's get the job done.
It's just that easy. Just that easy. So, going back to Ty Hansen, he is tied for the nation lead in points with Eric Polkamp.
Among defensemen. Is that NCHC or is that nationwide?
Nationwide.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to
Tyler Dunmar from Union has 23. Chris Hedden and Cole Hudson have 21. Hedden from Air Force, obviously Hudson from BU.
Yeah,
Boston Buckberger is 20. So with Livanovich. So
and you mentioned those couple of Denver, North Dakota players. Those 2 teams right now, 1-2 with North Dakota number 1 and Denver at 2 in the NCHC, playing in Grand Forks this weekend. Probably the marquee series. I was wondering, so Denver gets swept kind of handily at home against Western Michigan. Did St. Cloud break Denver? Because they haven't won since that 5-1 kind of dusting at the Herb. St. Cloud comes back to beat them. They lost and tied against Maine and now got beaten, like I said, convincingly at home against Western 2 games. So, and again, that's the next opponent for the Huskies after this Duluth series. Maybe the Huskies are going to see them at the right time because that series at North Dakota is not going to be any easier for the Bios. But any thoughts on that sort of series? Because that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, that's going to be massive. Obviously Magnus, that's going to be
in Grand Forks.
It's not like, I thought you were talking about when we go out there.
Sure.
But
we'll preview that next week. I'm getting ahead of ourselves, I know, but
sure enough. I mean, really surprising to see Denver reel as much as they are. And Maine is a team I know that I thought has been, I was pretty high on them earlier this season, but they've been kind of middling here this season. And to see them take care of business in Magnus, and then Western Michigan again in Magnus. So it's like, so you can't even really use that as an excuse here. So it's just uncharacteristic. And maybe Western Michigan also just decided to really just figure things out.
Yeah, they've looked really good.
Yeah. So it's,
and Maine, I should mention, followed up that series at Denver by getting swept at Providence this past weekend by a combined score of 9-1. So just when you thought, well, maybe this is Maine making their move, then it's now they're back down to 29th in NPI.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's the other series though. That's Denver, North Dakota. That's going to be the series that I'm going to keep my eye on. Just. Also, when those two teams play, usually there's some sort of fireworks. But North Dakota sitting right now 29 points in the conference tops. Denver 24, Western Michigan 23, Minnesota Duluth 21. So you got kind of your two tiers here when it comes to the NCHC. If you want to lump in Arizona State at 7, that's where it starts getting kind of a little bit tighter. Arizona State, and then down to Miami from 5 down to 9. So it's, but it'll be interesting to see how Denver is going to respond to the absolute slide. And if it was because St. Cloud State broke them, I am A-okay with that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I wondered too. I mean, Western's off this weekend, and I bet that they're probably not happy about that because, like I said, they're on an 11-1 hot streak. Mm-hmm. So, like any stoppage of that momentum, I'm sure is not ideal. But their next series at Duluth, that'll be a big one. For me, it might come down to Western and North Dakota. The way that Western is playing, it's looking difficult that anyone can stop them. And depending on, you can't count Denver out. Obviously, but I'm just looking at that. So after Western plays Duluth next weekend, their schedule kind of lightens up. They're playing bottom half of the conference teams for the next 4 series, and then they end the conference schedule at home against North Dakota. That might be for the Penrose. Kind of circling that as for
might be in the building.
So yeah, I would not be shocked if hardware was on the line there in Kalamazoo in late February. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But it's just kind of fun that we're at the point of the season, exactly halfway through the conference slate for everybody, so you can kind of see where things are kind of sorting out between top half and bottom half. It's there's races to be had. The ninth place spot where you're shut out, frozen out of the conference playoffs, that's up for grabs. Several teams are. It's not like last year where Miami had that on lockdown after November. And then obviously home ice is going to be, there was going to be a big push for that. That's wide open. And it looks like the Penrose is open up for grabs between a couple of teams as well. So good to see some good bounce back here for the conference and some good races throughout the standings.
Yep. So do we have a winner for the ticket for Minnesota Duluth? Because we had a giveaway.
We do. It is old friend of the show, Eric Z, also known as Euro. I think Travis is aware of Eric. I think they're friends of some sort. But he's been entering the show or entering the drawings basically every show, so we appreciate that. He gets a winning number pulled, and he's got the 2 tickets to the Duluth game this Saturday. He also won. I don't know if I even announced that because he was unable to use the tickets at the time, but he won a women's game drawing in the first half that he's still going to use at some point. sometime in the second half here. But so he's a multi-time winner on the drawings. But
Which
thank you for all who you're not disqualified once you win the drawing. So if you've won before, certainly enter for future shows. We have no drawing for next weekend. Our next drawing will be announced next show. We'll open that up for the Miami game on January 31st. So stay tuned. Listen next week for the passcode for that game. And again, thanks for everyone who did submit their passcode.
Perfect. Let's switch it up and head over to the women's side. Tough series against Ohio State, who sits at near the top of the standings. You know, it's the last couple of years in college hockey, really. It's been Wisconsin, Ohio State show. And this team really not that much of a difference. The Carrico start there on Friday's game, 4-0 win. Hilda Svensson, with the first goal of the game, I think she's kind of on lock for Rookie of the Year. I think she's been absolutely dynamic. 38 points in 22 games, 108 shots so far this year, plus 29. She's absolutely been dynamic for the Buckeyes. But then Saturday's game followed up a 5-1 defeat. And the JoJo started in net there. And you look at 5-1 defeat, but Ohio State put up 49 shots that game. So it was just absolutely peppering JoJo, who I thought she played her best game all year. And it's going to be kind of weird to say when you give up 4 goals. The last one was an empty netter. But I thought she was really solid in net, and I was really happy to see her kind of bounce back. But this Ohio State team it's a heck of a team. So it's kind of an expected result. But it does drop to St. Cloud State to 7-14-1 on the season. Sophiana Sunderland gets the 1 goal on the weekend on the power play. Holloway and LeBay get the assists. That Saturday game, I thought the Huskies played really well in that first period on Saturday. And end up going in with a 1-0 lead. I thought they were a lot more aggressive and tenacious than they were on Friday. I thought all of Friday they were incredibly passive and really let Ohio State kind of just skate around with the puck. I think that is not the right way to play against Ohio State, and letting them kind of dictate play. And I thought you definitely saw that. But I thought they were a lot more aggressive. I thought, again, they played really well. And I went to the game, as I said earlier in the show, and I talked to my wife in the first intermission, and I was like, it's really going to come down to like kind of the first 10 minutes of the second period are really going to kind of dictate, because Muzzerall's not going to be happy with how that first period went. And the 10 minutes go by, and we're still holding on to that 1-0 lead, but we are hanging on by a thread. I mean, that's where JoJo, I thought, really kept us in the game. But then you felt it coming. They pop in the power play goal. Their only power play that they got of the game. Both teams 1-for-1 on the power play after the Friday's penalty-filled affair. But you kind of felt that it was, they let in that 1 goal, and then they let in the next goal less than a minute later. And it's just that same kind of defeatist comes in waves that we've seen from this team over the past couple of years that just kind of sucked all the momentum out. And I was kind of in a new spot as I was actually talking with our last week's winners for the women's game. So I was kind of sitting with them. And so I was, in the kind of on the side. I wasn't, beneath the net like I normally do. And some of the scratches were there too. So they claimed my territory, but anyway, it's, you see them kind of suck the air out of the momentum. But being behind the benches, you can tell like the players are really trying to get everybody going and get everybody kind of back up and get some momentum going. But it was just, I think Ohio State is just too deep and too good that they're able to kind of squash any type of comeback. They had a couple of solid chances, a couple of them went wide. But it was, kind of a situation where it's, against a team like Ohio State, it's tough, to say the least. So ended up getting swept on the weekend, which isn't a surprise, but just how everything kind of fell on Saturday is just kind of leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it's difficult. These weekends are difficult to analyze because Ohio State is a better team. Like it's very clear after this weekend, and the analysis about beyond that, it's challenging to try to glean some positives from this weekend. And it's not even to say that St. Cloud played terribly. It's just that, again, Ohio State is one of the elite teams in the country. And it shows you like the fact that St. Cloud's been able to gain points out of this Buckeyes team the last couple of years. Even had that 2-0 lead in Columbus earlier this year that they let slip away. I was expecting tighter results this weekend, but this was one where Ohio State just kind of, from the initial puck drop, it was weird though. So the game starts at 5 my time. And so it takes me a little bit getting out of work to get out of work at that time. So I pull it up on my phone about 2 minutes into the game, and the score bug says 1-0 St. Cloud. And I'm like, wow,
yeah,
great start. But then it was a lot of confusion because then it was Ohio State's on the power play. And again, this was like 18:59 or whatever when I saw the clock. And I'm like, okay. And then it said the shots was 4-0 Ohio State. So then I'm like, was there like a delayed penalty and Ohio State put it in their own net? But this is how my brain was thinking. Because how do you score a goal without having a shot at a goal? So I rewound it to the beginning because I wanted to see that if that was going to be the case. And then I was like, oh, it was just a mistake. So the weekend got off.
Why is floating OSU _ on my TV?
I was that was the most excited I was all weekend, was the fact that I thought we had a 1-0 lead in the first minute on Friday. Now that first period on Saturday, obviously was the best period that St. Cloud's played on that in the weekend. It's again not like they dominated that weekend or that period. It was basically even shots on goal. This Friday game, as you mentioned, 1-for-1 for both teams on Saturday on power play. Power play struggles on Friday was one reason that St. Cloud wasn't able to either get the game off on the right foot or at least get back into the game in the middle part of the game, because they go 0-for-6 on the power play on Friday. That's something where, Ohio State's style is a very physical one. And that's one where if St. Cloud if they have any sort of aspirations of competing with Ohio State, they're going to need to convert on power play opportunities and then keep Ohio State off the board on their power play opportunities. They did that, the latter on Friday, weren't able to score any on their power play chances, which was obviously a sign that they weren't going to be able to win that game. And then on Saturday, obviously, it was kind of a wash for special teams. So again, it's and Carrico, again, kind of a rare, it's not like I'm hanging the loss on her, but one where she wasn't like the stellar Carrico that we've seen. Again, it's more like the bar that she is set here didn't quite meet it. And I was definitely okay with seeing JoJo start there on Saturday. Just more for a change of pace and the fact that Carrico wasn't maybe at her A+ game on Friday. So, but that, and that worked for St. Cloud for a period. But as you mentioned, it's the train that Ohio State was going to eventually come to the station. They did there in the middle of the second period and kind of took over that game. So it's one of those reminders that yes, you're not quite there yet. You've got a ways to go here to catch up to the cream of the crop of the league. And I don't think it's a bad thing to define this series as a step back, even though again, this is a really good team that you just played. But I would have liked to seen what we saw in the first half, especially offensively. I would have expected to see more than one goal against Ohio State this weekend. And also should mention Ohio State plays their backup goalie in the Saturday game as well, Klein. Get the goal on her in the first period, but that was it. So this is a really good Ohio State team. I can't say that enough. But I also, it's little you can do again when you're facing a team of that caliber. But I would have liked to see more from the Huskies this weekend, and let's hope that we get to see that extra something against Duluth this weekend. Because again, now at 7-14 and a couple of ties, as you mentioned, I mean, this record, you're playing Duluth, you're playing the Gophers after that. This record could really look pear-shaped pretty soon here. So, again, this is a season that's been a weird one. We didn't know how to really react with Jalosuo taking over in the midsummer, and how it's developed here has been some ups, some downs. With playing the top caliber teams, it still is apparent that this team has got a ways to go. But I don't know. It's still something that's interesting to watch. I wanted to see a little bit something more from the Huskies this weekend, and I hope to see it in a comeback series this weekend against Duluth.
Yeah, it's the main thing that is, I don't know, striking to me, or kind of, I just have a tough time wrapping my head around it with this team is we're looking at the Friday game. Like I said, I felt that they were timid kind of all game. I don't know if it's the time off and only have an exhibition game against St. Thomas, but maybe it was just a bad time to play it. But I thought they just were a step behind, but they were still able to draw 6 power play opportunities. And on those 6 power play opportunities, the whole game, you only end up with 23 shots. If you have 6 opportunities, you got to do something. You got to convert on some of these power play opportunities. Even if it's, sure, you only make it 4-2 or something like that, and you go 2 for 6, or you even 4-1, but it's, right now sitting at 15% on the power play. I think that's kind of the main thing that I am struggling to kind of wrap my head around. Like we're a much better goal scoring team this year than we were under Idalski. Now the counter side of that is, defensively, we're not as good. And with that, and sure, we can talk about personnel changes and some of those aspects kind of go into it as well. But it's like I feel like when you're playing the teams like Ohio State or Wisconsin, the big equalizer can be if you have an effective power play. And if they do, it just takes, the ref deciding to call things a little bit tighter, where, they'll call interference more than they would normally, or body checking is a little bit more lenient, or they'll, call it a lot more aggressively than they will. And, so it's those types of situations. It's like, convert on those chances, but like we're just able to get absolutely nothing going on any of them. And I think if we're looking at this team, it's like we got to do something to try to change up this power play. And maybe it's not right for me to say that, going 1 for 1 on converting on your only chances there on Saturday, and maybe they made the adjustment. I don't know, but sitting here at 15% so far on the season is something that I really, really expected to be a little bit better for a team that scores more, and I think has a more pure goal scoring talent than we'd had last year. So it's that I felt like has been a little bit disconcerting to me, especially looking at Friday's game.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, not only were they not scoring goals, but a couple of those power play opportunities, I don't think they were able to even get a shot attempt,
no,
much less a shot at goal. Some of that's obviously Ohio State's power or penalty kill. Pretty decent, like the rest of their units are. But yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me as well, is that this the power play could use a little life, a little juice. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to repeat the same thing here. It's like they played a really tough team and they didn't look very good doing so. It's difficult to kind of analyze it further than that, but
would you agree with my assessment on JoJo?
That she played her best game of the year? No. But I don't think she was. I think she played better than Kariko did on Friday. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. And it's not even to say that Kariko was the scapegoat on Friday. You've got to play a near perfect game against a team like Ohio State for this Huskies team to get some points out of them. I don't think either goalie played a perfect game, but even if they played a perfect game, that might not have been enough. Like you need to score more than one goal on a weekend in order to have a good chance of getting some points out of this weekend. And I don't know, this is one of those weekends where we've, the first half of the year, we're talking a lot about the offensive improvement this year, but this weekend was one of those kind of throwback weekends, and not in a good way, where we were more used to one goal weekends in years past. This was a return to that. And then you had sort of the defensive breakdowns that have been more apparent this year. And again, it's surprising that this, maybe it's surprising. We had a listener question. I don't know if you want to take it right now, because it feels like we're getting into this in terms of the style between Jalosuo and Idalski. Do you want to go into that, or do you want to do the Duluth preview first?
No, let's just go into it if we got time.
We did get a listener question, and it's a good question. These are the kind of questions that I like, because they're meaty, big picture questions. And I always like to kind of talk about where we're at with the program, the hands that this program is in. So we got Scott writing in. It's a long question, but I think it's a good one. So his question is whether Jalosuo is the right coach for the program. She has never been a head coach of a collegiate program at any level. And watching the team this year, it seems that she is not able to put pieces together in a way that works. Idalski's first year, the team was much weaker, and he was able to move the team in a forward direction. This group has more skill, yet is going down in the rankings. There does not seem to be chemistry with lines. The fourth line does not seem to produce, and yet we see the same numbers on the ice every weekend, when they clearly have a larger roster that they could be drawing from. And he's just asking our thoughts on this. And I like the question, because I've got like side questions based on Scott's questions here too. I just in general, just based on Scott's question here, I would first say that it's a little too early to gauge whether or not Jalosuo is, how well she's doing. I mean, she's halfway through her first year here. None of these players are players that she's recruited. We don't even know some of the players she would have recruited when she was here for Idalski's first year as an assistant. But in terms of her recruiting as a head coach, we won't know that aspect of it until years to come. So it's a little early to even gauge her performance as a head coach. But even if you want to do that, if you want to compare first years between Jalosuo and Idalski, I think that's fair. And I think it's fair to be more impressed with Idalski's job his first year because of the fact that he was inheriting Steve McDonald's players. And now Jalosuo is inheriting Idalski's players. And I agree with Scott that I think that Idalski had less talent that he inherited than Jalosuo is inheriting this year. I will say that Idalski's first year, that the 7-14 record from this year, part of that is colored by the fact that St. Cloud is playing the toughest schedule in the entire country. The non-conference was difficult. They were playing a much easier non-conference schedule in the Idalski years. So, I mean, you could have played a couple of weaker opponents instead of UConn and the DC tournament, and could have picked up some cheaper wins. That the record could be, I'm just saying the record is a little deceiving because you are playing a more difficult schedule. Not only the non-conference is more difficult, but I would argue the WCHA is better than what it was in 22-23. Peak of the conference, Wisconsin's better than they were, Ohio State's better than they were, and then the bottom of the conference, St. Thomas and Mankato, are certainly better than they were back in those years. So I think the overall strength of the league is better, and this year's non-conference is a more difficult strength of schedule. So maybe the team is more like a 10-12 team rather than a 7-14 team. Throw some ties in there, but the record might be a little bit deceiving. So I'll say that as well. In terms of just the style of play between them, I am a little surprised that Jalosuo having a defensive background herself as a player, I'm more surprised that I think the quickest short-term benefits of her style, or what we see of her style, is a more offensive-minded game. Part of that is getting defenders involved in the offense. I can get that part of it, but she seemed to have more of a emphasis on scoring. And, just based on the numbers that we see, team is getting outscored. The defense is giving up more goals per game. You're scoring more goals per game, which does indicate that part of her offensive philosophy is coming to fruition, but that's coming at a cost of giving up more goals on the other end. So that's a surprise. I would just think that naturally she would have more defensive nature as a coach. Just from a fan standpoint, I enjoy more scoring. Obviously, I didn't really care for this weekend's performance, but in terms of the first half, I thought that the games were a little bit more entertaining to watch. Part of that is there is more talent on this roster, as Scott mentioned, and that I will concede that point. But in general, if all else is equal, if I'm rather going to have a team that scores a lot and gives up a lot, or doesn't score a lot and doesn't give up a lot, kind of like how Idalski was kind of like doing the Jacques Lemaire kind of style there for a while, winning 2-1 games. Yes, you love seeing the W's, but those can be some, less fun games to watch. So again, if everything's equal, I like to see more goal scoring, and we have seen more of that this year. Again, that point was a little stronger before this weekend's performance. But so again, I like Jalosuo. I think based on the circumstances, Idalski departed in the middle of the offseason. I'm not really sure I'm not sure the better candidates that you could have hired. So I'm fine with, I like the Jalosuo hire at this point. Granted, it's very early. We're not going to know we're not going to be able to give a full grade on her performance until we get some recruiting of hers as a head coach coming in successive years here. So I want to at least hold my eventual grade for a couple years down the road. This year, yes, I'm frustrated with the record as it is, but there are things, namely the better offense, that does give me hope that there is going to be a game plan that's going to lead to more W's in future years. This season is a frustrating one, but on the whole, I'm certainly not ready to say that Jalosuo is the wrong hire or anything like that. But I do think it's fair to compare the two, Jalosuo and Idalski, and kind of how they each made their first impressions in their debut year behind the bench as a head coach for the Huskies. So there's some rambling for me. How about from you?
You made up a lot, or you made up. No, you made a lot of points I was going to bring up. I think first and foremost is the bottom of the WCHA is better. I 100% agree that St. Thomas used to be a doormat. I don't think they're nearly a doormat now. Mankato used to be a doormat, not a doormat anymore. The talent pool is getting deeper. And, when all said and done, that's a very good thing for women's college hockey in general. Now, if we were looking at, but you brought up the comparison to Jacques Lemaire, and I think that's a really good one because Jacques Lemaire also took a team that was an expansion team 3 years in to the Western Conference Final, where the Wild have never been since. And I think that's because inherently, which is why it's so frustrating for the men's team, inherently defensive style and defensive structure and shutting it down and playing like a neutral zone trap type of a system, it's easier to implement if you have lesser quality, top quality players that have trouble scoring goals, to keep it that low scoring game and where you're able to eke out 2-1 wins, and you're able to recruit goaltending that's where you can pitch that you're going to be busy here. So I do think that's important to note. And obviously Jalosuo, we're not going to know for a couple of years. But she said in the beginning of her press conferences right away, it's like, I'm going to bring in a new style. There's going to be a learning curve. We're not going to be playing our best hockey right away. And so, I'll definitely reserve judgment to see how the rest of the season is going to go, to see if we do make kind of those adjustments and to see where they're at. But I do feel that I overall I like her as a coach. We'll see in a couple of years where it's all gonna end up. If we're looking at where the future is, we, for upperclassmen, really we've got Grace Wolf. That's going to be a huge blow. Farrell, who I think is a solid player, but sometimes disappears. And I think that she's kind of that spark plug type of a player who can, put in points, but sometimes it's like I wish there was a little bit more there for her. Vogt senior, I'm not really sure exactly about her. I'm not the biggest. You're not going to look at her to really produce points. I think she's got really good playmaking ability. If you get her in the right situations. But so like you're looking at the upperclassmen of who we're going to lose, but you're looking at who we have coming up. Obviously, McKinnon, I really enjoy her play. LeBay, I really enjoy her play. Peon, defensively, I think she's been solid in her first year. Remick, I think she's been hot and cold, but she's a freshman. So it's like I like where it's going, and if we're going to keep the coaching and the coaching style, I'm really intrigued by where it's going to go. And also I think Wisconsin is going to fall off here with so many upperclassmen and dominant players that they have. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a drop. Ohio State has a little bit more youth, so they might still be a powerhouse. But also the transfer portal can kind of change everything too, to see if they're going to have their kind of pick and pluck anything they want. Or if, some of those players are tired of being buried on the third and fourth line, still want to play in the WCHA and might have a landing spot here. So it'll be interesting to see where everything goes out. But so far, I really like Jalosuo and what she's been doing, and we'll see if the players do. Because if the players don't really care for it, now they have a exercise their option to test the water somewhere else.
They did have a chance to do that in the offseason, right at the time of the coaching change.
Mm-hmm.
That is a option that's enabled by a coaching change, even if it happens after the portals close, as it was in June when Idalski bolted for the PWHL. All the players on roster, including the incoming recruits, none of them bolted. I think that spoke well of Jalosuo at that time. Again, because she is familiar with some of the players on roster because she was here in 22-23 under Idalski herself. Yeah, this is a very young roster. Maybe you can speculate too, because again, there's a lot of sub questions I have with this question. Like, so 7-14-1 is the record right now. If Idalski is on this team, we know that the roster would have been exactly the same because there was no changes after the coaching change. So if Idalski is behind the bench this year, obviously Jalosuo is probably in the PWHL as an assistant right now. But that would probably be the only change you'd have. Just swap out the head coach here. What's St. Cloud's record with Idalski behind the bench?
Well, let's kind of go through some of the games. Obviously, sweep of Lindenwood stays the same. Split with UConn. I mean, you lose 2-1 in an Idalski type game. I mean, you even put up 37 shots. So it's,
I'm not really looking for like a game by game. I'm just looking like 2 or 3 wins better, 2 or 3 wins worse, about the same, like just in general, like just from your gut perspective.
Sure. Yeah. And if I were, I would say, yeah, probably about, if I were to look at these games then and say which ones were dropped, that I think Idalski may have won instead. We're looking at the St. Thomas game. We're looking at the Bemidji game. And then maybe Minnesota State, but at the same time, we came back from down 2-0. So maybe not that one. So yeah, probably about 2 wins better. And again, like you said, that's a tougher non-conference schedule too. So
yeah, I think you got to mention that. I don't like look at the actual results. Like if Idalski's on this team, do they score 4 goals against Wisconsin and tie that game? I don't think so. I don't think they have a 4-goal performance with Idalski all of last year, or more than like once or twice. Certainly not against a team like Wisconsin. So it's just the overall philosophy is a little bit different. Idalski's going to go into games with a certain philosophy, and he also goes into the games with a different kind of philosophy. So I don't know how that all shakes out. After Idalski left, we agreed, we stipulated on the record here that we thought that Idalski is the best coach in women's program history for St. Cloud State. That might be more of a backhanded compliment of sorts, just based on the history of this program not being that stellar. But we had high praise for Idalski. None of this conversation should negatively reflect on his time here. I think it's just interesting how different of a style they have, and how much of an effect that would have. So if we're like speculating what Idalski would have done with this roster, you might have to think about what Jalosuo would have done with that first year of Idalski. Him inheriting all the McDonald players. And would he have gotten a 500 season out of that roster? Maybe Idalski was working magic that year. Again, the non-conference schedule was not as great. They had that Hall of Fame game win against Minnesota. They had to win at Wisconsin that year. But most of those wins were beaten up on bad teams. And you just haven't had the luxury of playing a ton of bad teams this year.
Yeah.
Not only because the non-conference is tougher, but the WCHA is tougher too. So it is a lot of speculation, but that's what makes it fun. I just like these kinds of questions because it makes us speculate. I always think it's a valid question to talk about key people in programs, whether it be head coaches, assistant coaches, ADs, things like this. It's always good to kind of stop and think of what we've got. in this case, like with Larson's kind of a guy that it's taken me a while to sort of form an opinion, and it's still is evolving. But he's 8 years into his tenure. We're now kind of at a point where, okay, we've kind of got an idea of what to expect. We have a good track record of his recruiting. We have a good track record of his in-game approach, the X's and O's, so to speak. It's still sort of like, our opinions on Larson and the future of Larson with the program, those are always subject to change. Jalosuo is going to be the same way, and it's very early in that arc of a narrative for us to really make any definitive judgments. But I'm happy that we have that we were able to discuss it. It's always relevant to muse about these kind of things. So, and I just hope coming into this or continuing, let's say, with this second half gauntlets portion of the schedule, that this 7-14 record doesn't get even more pear-shaped. But that's kind of the task at hand here. I'm kind of nailing the segues this show. We've got Duluth, old rival Duluth, up in Amsoil, a place that Idalski even could not win as a Husky head coach. Can the Huskies get off the Schneid, the Amsoil Schneid this weekend?
I hate to ruin your segue.
Spoke too soon. I always blow over the pow too. Yeah. Well, it's a tough one. I mean, really, you're going to ask me to do a pow.
It's either a tough one or a really good one, actually, because you had one goal scorer. So I'm going to go with that.
That's kind of my default. No other great candidate leaps to the page, but I guess I'll go with Sunderland if you are as well. I hate to copy you, but I guess I will.
No. Occam's razor on this one.
You said you thought JoJo was her best. Maybe go with her.
If we were able to get to overtime that game, I probably would have.
Oh, sure. But I would have agreed with that. But you're going Sunderland?
Yep.
Yep, me too.
And also, I was going to say a snub for the Olympic team for Finland. And the Huskies are going to get another Finnish player on the roster, a defender.
Yes.
It sounds like, and I'm going to butcher this name, Hanel Tarkkanen, I'm going to go with. 20-year-old Hatton in St. Cloud Live says is going to join on January 31st. 5 goals, 11 points in 15 games, playing for Finland's top league, top women's league. So, looks like she also spent time as goalie too. So kind of a jack of all trades there. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what role she fits, but looks like we're going to have her kind of down the stretch, maybe, filling in for Urola, as Urola is going to be on the Olympic team. So it sounds like a later kind of call up, so to speak, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it did catch my eye when I was just looking at the roster, and then sure enough on the line chart it said that she was a scratch. So we'll see what happens, what her placement's going to be on the team, but I'm excited to see.
Yeah, she's listed as a scratch on the last line chart, but because of that, we don't get a pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to bear with us butchering it. If you're gonna guess Tarkkanen, but even the first name Hanel, are we going Hanel? Hanley? I don't know. Apologies, but once we get a pronunciation guide on here, we'll try our darndest. But it was a little bit of a surprise because you have Hannah Arnold, who's been scratched all year, and I'm assuming they're going to keep the red shirt on her, 18 years old. Aruba Skiston has had a handful of games this year on the point. You'd figure they could slot her in. She is also 18. So Tarkanian, again, probably wrong. Apologies. 21 years old. So there's no benefit of keeping a red shirt on her. That might be the reason why they're bringing her in mid-season here. And that January 31st date where apparently she becomes eligible to play, or she's expected to start playing for the Huskies, that right around coincides when the Olympics will start, and players like Rayla, Carrico, and others will be missing from the Huskies. So timing wise, it makes sense there. But yeah, kind of like when we saw Tyson leave the men's team. Not often that we see a mid-season roster addition, but welcome to the fold, Hanley, apologies, but welcome to the Huskies.
Yep. And our assistant coach, it's Emily Ock.
That's correct.
Is
that I can pronounce.
I follow her on Instagram, and she's at the U18 Girls Hockey Worlds right now. So probably taking a look at some of the talent from around the world. I saw that Finland didn't have any commits, so probably scoping out Finland, trying to keep working that connection.
There's a connection there.
So, but so far, USA has kind of been rolling in that tournament. To say the least, beat Slovakia 9-1. So, but let's go. Like you said, Duluth on deck. Really has been a thorn in the side for the Huskies. A lot of games that they've been able to play up there, and it's been incredibly frustrating because we've been so close so many times and ended up just not being able to close the door. This Minnesota Duluth team is a solid team, but they're in a little bit of a slide. They went out to the friendship 4, lost in overtime to Harvard, and then lost to Quinnipiac. And did tie Wisconsin and get the shootout win, but then lost 5-1 the next night. So they're going to be kind of, I think, chomping at the bit. And then you're looking at their, Caitlin Kramer is their goal or a point per game player. Theo Johansson, as well, the transfer from Mercyhurst, has been putting up some solid numbers here in the WCHA. So it's like anything, it's going to be a tough test. Gascon, solid goaltender, always has been, and 935 save percentage. But it's shockingly, they're only 10% on the penalty kill, or 10% on the power play. So I think, talking about our power play, I think that should be a focus this week, to either get some new looks or generate some chances. But it's a team. This is where I really like to pick up some points this weekend, if not just for, maybe some sanity's sake, for where we're at with the team, because going on another extended losing streak is never ideal.
That's right. And a team like Duluth, where they've fallen off with their offense, I mean, they've always kind of been built from the back out. Gascon being the most recent of their stellar goalies that they've had in the stable. Gascon actually didn't play either of the games when these two teams played in November. Sofia Villanueva played both of those games. Gascon was limbering up for the rivalry series, I believe, or was it national team duties of some sort? So she was unavailable for Duluth in that series. So Husky kind of caught a break there, because obviously she's one of the better goalies in the country, but weren't able to crack Villanueva, and Duluth was able to sweep that series. That's one of the ones I circled this year as far as like missed opportunities. Obviously, you had like the games against St. Thomas and Bemidji that stand out, but the Duluth series, especially like how high ranked they have been, they've fallen off, as you mentioned, a bit of a stumble the last couple of weekends. But a win, like at least one win that weekend would have been huge for the Huskies. Was not to be, though.
Especially that Saturday game where we outshot them, and especially dominated that third period. Still end up losing 3-2. I mean, that's a gold one. Is like, I wish that game could have gone differently.
there's kind of ones where, I mean, that was when Karika was hurt. So you didn't have her, Huskies didn't have her available. So like both teams didn't have their A goalies playing that weekend. Huskies could have used her that weekend for sure, because that would have been a huge swing for them at that point. But now you're going to have to try to win in Amsoil. That's not been an easy task. Mm-hmm. Haven't done that in recent years. But with that back end being so strong with Duluth, it comes with a struggle to score goals. I mean, they're pretty close in terms of team offense. 60 goals scored versus 56 in the same number of games. Duluth having the slight edge over the Huskies in that category. So this is a team that's not really, throwing goals in the back of the net on a regular basis. And when they do, it's generally against lesser competition. Just 1 goal scored in each of their last 3 games, and winless so far in the 2026 slate of their schedule. Let's keep that going. We'd like to see at least a win here this weekend. Just for again, this is a tough stretch of the schedule here for the Huskies. For them to go winless too longer, we're playing the Ohio States and the Duluths and the Minnesotas of the world, and then you're hitting the Olympic break with 4 of your better players off in Italy for a couple of weeks. That's not a good recipe. So you're on the road. You think that this is going to be a good opportunity if you do win one of these games. Duluth is still in NPI territory, even with their recent stretch of not so great play. They're still sitting there at number 9 in the NPI. So that would qualify them for the tournament if it were to start today. So this is a premium win if you get one. Are you so bold as to predict the Huskies are, I wouldn't even say like a win? Are you going to go to overtime? Are you going to get any points out of this weekend? What's your, set me an over under for points for the Huskies this weekend?
I mean, I don't know where Vegas would put it. Probably at either 0.5 or 1.5.
Okay, either of those. Are you taking the over?
I'll take the over. I'll take the over 0.5. I think we'll get to overtime one of the games.
Okay. I
think with them reeling, and also like we're looking at Harvard, who is not a great team. Quinnipiac is a solid team and right up there, but I mean they're kind of reeling right now. So I think hopefully we can really see some kind of momentum. And I'd like to see the Huskies kind of turn a corner. Sitting at 9, that's on bubble territory, and looking at, they don't have really a signature win. I mean, their non-conference games, Mercyhurst, Syracuse. So they won those, and then the losses to Harvard and Quinnipiac. But you got 2 losses to Wisconsin, 2 losses to Minnesota, 2 losses to Ohio State, and come back against Wisconsin with a tie, and then another loss. So they're kind of doing the thing where they're beating the teams they should beat, in conference play at least, and then losing to that upper echelon there. So it'll be kind of a situation where if we're going to be knocking on that door of trying to get, make a second half run, this is the weekend to do it. This is the weekend where it needs to happen. So I think if we can, get some positive momentum here, just play a solid 60 minutes is all I'm asking. And I like our chances if we do that, but we can't get this mental block of, we shouldn't be on the same ice of them if they score a goal and then they score one shortly afterwards. Cause I feel like that's always been, or that's been the downfall of this team in the last couple of years, is that, we're not able to counter their momentum. And that happened again against Ohio State. We're up 1-0. They score again a minute later. That's happened couple of times against Duluth over the last couple of years. So that's where, just get rid of that mental block, just play your game. And I think you've got a good chance, but you got to get over this mental stigma of it being a Minnesota Duluth.
Indeed. So we got Choback, who started her NCAA career in Duluth. This, barring a postseason matchup, will be the last series that she plays in Duluth. Who you starting on Friday? You going with Carrico? You going with Choback? You think that JoJo's going to play this weekend? Like, again, what are you thinking with her getting the last start here on Saturday against Ohio State? Well, who are you coming back with on Friday? And do you think JoJo's going to play this weekend?
I think you go back to, I think you just continue with the same rotation. You go Karika and then JoJo.
I would not be surprised if JoJo appears based on her history with Duluth. Last time, it's been a while, I mentioned, since Duluth has won, or since the Huskies have won in Duluth. February 9th of 2019, took a 51 save performance from Janine Alder for the Huskies to upset the Bulldogs. That was in the McDonald era. So it's been quite a while. There's been some ties and overtime results in that since then, but no wins of any sort, overtime or regulation, since 2019. So let's break that streak. How about it? 7 plus years here, or almost 7 years, I suppose. Let's break it this weekend. How about it?
Yep, exactly. So, and who better than JoJo to do it, right? So
that would be fitting.
So it would be. So, one more question, I guess. I don't know if for Euro sent in for me. I don't know. Is this something that I read? Gentlemen, over the years of going on SCSU hockey road trips, we noticed that every trip there is one in our group that was a little extra and kind of being a jackwagon at times. So we decided after each trip we would name someone the a-hole of the weekend, a title that had to be earned unintentionally. It's the accolade you must embody rather than make an effort to win, and one that Weldon took home after our trek to Grand Forks. That was me dancing for the YouTube video of typical St. Cloud fan. So over the past weekend, we had a 3-on-3 tournament down in Fairmont representing SCSU. Attached a picture of lovely looking gentlemen in St. Cloud state jerseys. But a week before, one player dropped out in the midst of asking others to fill in. We contacted one Travis Weldon, who said he could not participate. Yes, Teresa had a girls' weekend planned, so I was not able to. She had dibs. We won our 3-round robin games convincingly and as the number 1 seed, even with our one player missing due to being too tired to play. So he did laundry at Airbnb. Bet Trav could guess who that was. If I were to guess, I would probably say it was Bowers, but tell me if I'm right, Zamora. Dusted our competition in the semis. We played the team that we beat 14-10 in round robin play for the championship, lost 15-14 in OT. My question is this. If one of our skaters says Travis is a better player than the person who ended up filling in, can we nominate Weldie for a-hole of the weekend? And if we didn't have a strong crop of submissions from others, should he win the award? I don't think I should be able to win a-hole of the weekend by not even being there. I probably would have won if I was there.
That makes you the a-hole because you're not there.
I think below is a picture of the boys living up to the program's history and tradition. Regular season powerhouse, postseason struggles. So, I appreciate that, Euro, for nominating me for a-hole of the weekend. And
I would, if I were you, I would accept that with relish.
He did request $1 from Venmo during that whole bit.
Nice.
So
pay that man.
He did pay it back, so it's okay. We're even. but I will take the mantle. But I promise, Euro, I know I've had to flake out on some, but having 3 kids, sometimes it's just not in the cards. But keep inviting me to that. I'd like to make an appearance at one of them and finally get you over the hump to bring a title, because obviously you're missing me. So I'll take a hole of the weekend, but I will go redeem myself or become a bigger a-hole. One of the two. I will mark my words.
Very good.
So, how about does her this episode of the Huskies Hockey Podcast? So I'm Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. Andrew, you can find him at.
Well, first, at Travis-Weldon-2. That is his Venmo. Be sure to request $1 from him. Or Venmo him $1.
As YouTube has typical SCSU fan, my Venmo profile picture, you will know it's a St. Cloud State hockey fan. I will say that.
Correct. You can't go wrong. So please hit him up. It helps the show. You can find me at Andrew at SCSUHHP on X. You can email the show like Scott did, and Euro for that matter. We like to get these especially interesting questions where we can go take different
ways,
routes and sub questions from them. So thanks again, Scott, for that excellent question. That email address you can send such excellent questions is huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com. Please send us those emails, and appreciate everyone that has submitted questions or submitted passcodes, I should say, for the ticket giveaways, and we'll have the next one next week.
Exactly. I do also want to give a special shout out. I can't imagine they listen to the podcast, but when I was buying my ticket for the women's game, in the box office booth, I guess, whatever, next to me, there were 2 women were talking, and they said that they came in from Arkansas to watch the series. So they said that they were big St. Cloud fans. They watch all the time on Big Ten Plus. And sadly, they walked away while I was finishing up my transaction. I probably should have sought them out and tried to get a little bit more of their story about how they became fans or what their connection was. But they made the trek up to come to a game, and that was pretty awesome to see. So yeah, so shout out to them if they even listen. Probably don't, but it's cool to have fans that do that. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So until next time, go Huskies. Woo!